Welcome to the Coffee Club, broadcasting live from New York with your host, Felix, and co-host, Dr. Mark. So let's have a cup of coffee and enjoy the show.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
I know which world we're in. We're in Queens. We are live. We are out in Long Island. We're all over the place. We are the Coffee Club. And today we're running the special edition of
the Rebellious Rev.
And the Doc. And I'm the Rebellious Rev.
And they call me the Doc.
And the Doc is my counterpart because I'm more of an impulse type of guy, and Dr. Mark is more of a, well, how should we put it, refined, and he thinks before he talks, and I talk and then I think.
But then I've been accused of sitting on my brains also, so I mean, you know, what can I tell you?
Well,
excuse me, folks.
Well, what is this, the noise making already? I don't need any kind of...
I have a tickle in my throat. It's better than having a tickle someplace else, okay?
What you do is you shut off your microphone for a second, then you tickle your nose.
No, I actually put it back on. You were the one that shut it off. You didn't want people to hear what I have to say.
I wanted you to go outside and do what you had to do with the microphone shut off. So, you know, when you went...
All I went to do was to close the studio door.
Yeah, and you shut the microphone off. That's protocol. This way it doesn't pick up the sounds. Remember, I'm the...
Speaking of sounds, ladies and gentlemen, our number here, the number to call in New York is 646-595-3275.
That is, again, repeating it, 646-595-3275.
Oh, there's an echo.
There's an echo.
And also,
we have
our chat room.
Our chat room.
Doc, Rev, why don't you tell us about the chat room?
There's nothing to say. If you want to chat, get on the chat room and give us write something in, say hi, ask us a question, especially if you are the shy type like Dr. Mark, who does not like to talk. This is another way of expressing yourself without actually having to talk live on the show. Today's show was a very special show. It's a
well thought of show, I must say, because it was my idea.
Yeah, it was a well thought of idea.
No, the Rev really enjoyed the topic, and I hope you enjoyed the topic at home. But we'll only know if you call us up.
Or enter the chat room and chat, or email us, which is a...
Haven't mentioned that in a long time, yeah.
You can email us at info, I-N-F-O, at ccradionetwork.com. And this way, Dr. Mark and myself will get the emails. Anyway, so what's our topic tonight, Dr. Mark?
Do you believe in the existence of a God, or do you consider yourself to be an agnostic or an atheist? For the benefit of the Rev, I will explain that an atheist is one who does not believe in a supreme being or a God. An agnostic is one who is doubtful as to the existence, but remains open for argument. Okay, we all know that the Rev, being a man of the cloth in the clergy, has a firm belief in the existence of an Almighty. I myself believe also, as the Rev does. I have friends who are very doubtful, and in fact, the Rev will probably tell you a family story about his parents and how they came to believe that they doubted the existence of a God.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that later. My parents were actually, my mother would be considered a Holocaust survivor, and my father hit her during the war for about a year and a half.
Let me explain. That's HID, not HIT. The way you said it, one would think that he hit her.
He hit her, and he hit her sometimes to keep her quiet so she wouldn't make any noise. No. He hit her in a closet, and she really had to be very quiet. And in the wintertime in Poland, it gets cold, and she couldn't turn any heat on or anything else. This was a rough time for her, and
And she never really recovered, did she?
No, she never recovered from it. She just... So, she was a survivor, but, she was a survivor, let's just say, leave it at that. But she was also a victim, as I say. I think all survivors became victims somehow because obviously they were victimized while they were in the camps. And all of them, I believe, had something that had to change. I don't think anybody could have gone through that tremendous Holocaust and then come out with that without being 100% normal.
Well, Felix, it's not only the Holocaust itself, but if you ask any soldier will tell you that anyone who has gone into combat and seen people die is never really the same after that. How can you be?
My father, who hit on my mother, saw both of her parents die. Her father was shot by the SS troops, and her mother committed suicide after he was shot. So, my father, hit her, saw a lot, and my father, throughout his life, was afraid that this could happen again. And he was afraid of anybody being Jewish because he was afraid of that experience happening to Jews again. He felt that was going to happen, and he had to protect everybody, and he tried to raise everybody Catholic, and made my mother actually converted. I don't think it really meant anything to her, but she converted, and my mother did not believe in God any longer. How could there be a God after she saw all the family die that was there? Her parents, her brother, and multiple other relatives that were still left in Poland. And they all got killed somehow or committed suicide. So she really became a non-believer, or at best an agnostic. But I would say non-believer. And my father, he went to church and he wanted to, but I don't think that he did it so much for the religion, but to show that he's Catholic in case this kind of a Holocaust occurs again. He was Catholic, and to him it meant a lot for his family for the survival of his family. That's the way he felt. So. It's a strange, and I was born in Israel in the middle of all this. It's very strange, because on Saturdays I'd go out run with the kids to the shul, and on Sundays I would go with my father to church. Didn't really know what I was, and never really cared. The kids never really cared, and my friends, and that's just the way I was raised. But anyway, that's not what we're here about tonight. We want to know, do you believe there's a God? Do you have some doubts maybe? Or you're an atheist? And Mark, you said basically...
I'm a believer.
You're a believer?
I'm a believer.
100%?
Yes.
Okay. I want to tell you something. I just... was doing a little research today about some the newest fad churches, because that's sort of my hobby with all these internet churches and all that. And there's The first church of the atheists is now open, and you can become an ordained minister. Or as an ordained minister, as an atheist.
Did you happen to tell them about the Snoopifarian sect?
No, that's a Pastafarian.
No, Snoopifarian.
The Snoopifarians won't be opening up for another 3 months.
Well, we should explain that anyone who follows Snoopy, you can now become a Snoopifarian.
Just like the ones, they just recognized a new religion called the Pastafarians, and they believe there's a invisible flying pasta, and that's what they pray to. I mean,
in the Catholic Church,
the pasta strainer. They
in the Catholic Church, they have one of the blessings is of the Eucharist, the body of Christ. Well, if you're a pastafarian, all you have to do is eat some pasta, and you're carrying God around with you in your stomach.
I guess. Now, what did you think of the what I just said about ministers, or the atheist ministers ordained?
Well, they have to, but they don't answer to anyone. That's the whole thing. They are doubting. Wait, atheist or agnostic?
Atheist.
Atheist. Then they don't believe in anything.
Exactly. But they
could set themselves up as God.
Well, what they do is they just, they'll marry other atheists who don't want a religious wedding, who don't believe it. And they are allowed, they have all the privileges of any other minister. They can go to a prison or anywhere else. They get their parking passes, everything.
And what's this? I understand that you might be going to the Queen's House of Queens Boulevard, Kew Gardens, or Queen's House of Detention or something?
Yeah, I may have to be visiting some prisoners there, the way things look like. And we'll see about that. But I thought seeing that there's an atheist movement where now you become ordained, and you only and not like some of the other religions.
No, don't start telling us about the goat.
There's
no Billy Goat, please.
There's no fee. They don't charge you.
Who'd you make the check out to?
Well, listen, you don't make out the check to God. Say I don't know, whoever, but yeah,
Brother Michael.
Brother Michael, he's probably the same group. He just figured he's got both ends this way.
Covering his behind.
Exactly. Okay, and then I want to ask you something. Maybe you can explain to me. Now I know. Now, what do you know about pagans? Anything?
Pagans?
Yes.
Well, it's like one of the oldest religions. Also, the Celts, or the Celts, depending upon how you want to pronounce them, and Druids. They believed in a sect. They were a sect who believed in a god of the forests, and they celebrated holidays very similar to Jewish holidays and Catholic holidays. As I have mentioned before, I have a friend who's a witch, a pagan, and born Jewish. She still sort of celebrates the Jewish holidays, but she calls them by their pagan name.
Now, pagan is not necessarily a witch.
No, a pagan, basically, according to Catholics, a pagan is a non-believer. Okay, the British, the early Britons who followed Christ believed that the Vikings were pagans, but the Vikings had their own set of gods. They had Norse gods. They had Thor, the god of thunder. Okay, so like every group of people, even the American Indians, prayed to a god. Okay, it's just that it wasn't Jesus per se. It wasn't Yahweh. Native Americans called him the Great Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody believed in some sort of a supreme being except the atheists.
And maybe the Buddhists believe in a supreme being?
Well, they follow the teachings of the Buddha, who was very much a human. Okay, the Buddha was more of a philosopher, and his teachings were more philosophical. Okay, there was no real religion set up.
But I believe they believe in reincarnation.
Well, yes, and then Buddhists also believe that happiness, and if you seek God, it comes from within, that it's inside of you. Okay,
I agree. My feeling is, would you say, does everybody agree there's only one God, basically, you think?
Well, as I said, like, with the exception of atheists, most people believe in one God. It's just a question of what you call the one God.
It's not what you call, but does anybody really think there's the same God?
I think so. Because even in the Catholic religion, you have the Holy Trinity. You have God the Father, who is God. Then you have the Son, who is Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. In Judaism, you have Hashem, you have Yahweh, whatever the case may be, I am. But he's called God. And then, in the other religions, there is a supreme being. In Islam, it's Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet. So.
But do you think it's the same? Everybody thinks it's the same God.
I think so.
Then
And then you wonder why are there so many wars in the name of religion? Just look at the Crusades, the Holy Wars in the Middle East. During the Knights of the Templar.
Yeah. Or even now with the committing suicide, and then you go to heaven and you meet your 72 virgins or whatever it is.
72 ugly women, you mean?
Whatever. Yeah, they got to be ugly if they're virgins. But whatever it is, how can we believe in the same God, the same supreme being, and yet act so differently and act so violently, all in the name of the same God?
And then you ask yourself also, Rev, I'm at a loss here. Oh, Abraham. We had a show on that many weeks ago. The father of three religions. We're actually all cousins. Judaism, Islam, Catholicism, we're basically all cousins. We all stem from Abraham.
Well, we all are. Everybody basically believes that the earth started with Adam and Eve, don't they?
Well, then you have, in the earlier Bibles, the story of Gilgamesh. Adam and Eve were probably called something else, but they were Adam and Eve. Okay.
Yes, so we're all basically somehow. If you're truly religious, then we're all brothers and sisters. We're all related.
We're all kissing cousins.
We're all everybody. If that's the way you want to look at it.
Well, what happens is, I once asked somebody about this, and the problem is that human frailties and politics come into the picture. That's where the problem stems from. Okay? Other than that, I really don't know how to explain it.
The first thing is, if you're a believer, you can't convince somebody to become a believer, I don't think. It's very hard to convince somebody.
Well, but they say that there are no atheists in a foxhole. Okay? If you're fighting a war, everybody's praying to somebody. Pity the poor atheist, because who does he pray to?
I don't know, but once it comes out of the foxhole, does he become an atheist again?
Good question. People say, well, in the name of God, they say something. Well, which God are you talking about? There is only one God. Places like Russia, have more or less tried to prove that there is no God, that the state is God. Okay, under Marx, Lenin, and Stalin, certainly you do, but Russians are basically members of the Eastern Orthodox Church.
And they're very religious people, and and they really can't get the religion out of them, no matter what. But again, the question is, and you answered it, I think, we all believe there's only one God. And
it really doesn't make a difference what you call him or her.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter really how you pray to him, I don't think.
No, whether you prostrate yourself and get down on your knees, or whether you just bow your head, or you face the east, face Mecca or Medina in Islam, I really don't know.
Well, I think, like you said, even pagans are believers.
They have their own set of gods. Yes, they do.
Yeah, they're also believers, and so.
And like I said, the early Christians believed that anyone who did not believe in Jesus Christ was a pagan or a heathen.
Yeah. Because
they just refused to recognize, any other god but Jesus. And that's why, especially when the Spaniards came over and the French, because they were highly religious, right away they started to convert the Native Americans, because they started telling them stories about, you cannot get into heaven unless you are baptized. Just forget about it.
That's true. Well, so that's one thing, I don't think we should be imposing our wishes upon anybody else and our thoughts.
But then again, you do have religions like the Mormon Church, the Church of Mormon and the Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witnesses. Part of their religion is to go out and do ministry and convert people. Even the Catholic Church is not adverse to conversion. Okay? The Jewish religion doesn't look to convert anybody. Okay? They don't literally go out and knock on your door.
Well, years back, the Catholic religion obviously did it. I don't think they do it as much now.
If they did it a long, long time ago, and I mean like back during the during the Crusades and the Holy Wars, because you had the monks going around. Take Spain, take the Inquisition. Jews were forced to convert to Catholicism or face the Inquisition, where many of them would die. Okay, they were given a choice of converting to Catholicism and worshiping Jesus, which some of them did, and others were tortured or they left Spain early. But before that, for hundreds of years, Jews lived in Spain and were allowed to practice their religion. Okay, and it was never a problem.
Yeah, it really bothers me that people consider their religion is better than somebody else's. Who are we to judge? There's only one person that's going to judge us.
That's true, and if you're a believer, it's God who's going to judge you.
And even if you're an atheist, it still doesn't mean you're not a good person or there's anything wrong with you. You just believe in science and you believe that life starts when you're born and it ends when you die.
Then you have the Calvinists believed in predestination. That is, from the time you were conceived and the time you were born, it was already determined whether you were going to heaven or hell. The type of life that you led while you were alive was the indicator as to where you were going to go. If you led a bad life, it was said that you were destined to go to hell, and you're just behaving that way. You led a good life, it was the opposite. And again, I really would like to push this one short story by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Young Goodman Brown. It's not a very long story. and it's loaded with symbolism. His wife's name is Hope. His wife's name is Faith. And his religion is being put to the test. And at the end of the story, you question whether or not he lost his faith, meaning his religion, or his faith, meaning his wife, or both. It's an excellent short story. I remember reading it in high school. I remember assigning it to my classes to read as a teacher. It was just a very, and Nathaniel Hawthorne had a way of writing. He was one of the first prolific American writers, going back to the colonial days.
I didn't read that, but it sounds like an interesting story. Now, how do you feel about, if you're an atheist, obviously you have the same rights as, they used to say, freedom of religion is the freedom of non-religion. Is that right? That's what the Constitution says. You can have, it's either.
Well, if you don't have a religion, then that's your right not to have one.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't believe that. They just feel like people have to have a religion.
Well, even if people feel that someone has to have a religion, why do you take it? Why do you, meaning the people involved here, why do they take it upon themselves to be the ones to, push their religion as opposed to another religion?
I feel if you want to do something, you want to help the world, you help the world, but not by imposing your will. You help by donating to a good cause. You help by going and doing a good deed. That's how you help the world.
Well, Rev, if you recall, when we broadcast under the Coffee Club, one of the things we said about election time, in fact, it came out of your mouth, was basically, we're not telling you who to vote for. We're just telling you to go out and express by your vote how you feel. Get involved with your community. That's another way of being a religious person. You don't have to believe in a supreme being to do this. Every community has homeless people or people in need. So be one of the people who drives the car for Meals on Wheels or something, or deliver meals to people who need it. Or if you know of an elderly person who has to go to a doctor, make yourself available.
Or if you just see somebody having trouble crossing the street, get out of your car and help them. How many times have you seen it? And you see the kids laughing at the person and...
Oh, no, you know what that reminds me of? You remember the old Laugh-In? When Artie Johnson, as the old man, would walk Ruth Buzzy across the street, and she'd hit her with her pocketbook because she didn't want to cross the street. She wanted to go the other way.
Right, I remember that. But, so that's my feeling about it. I think religion is helping others, not trying to convince others. A big difference.
And not only that, think of it this way, folks. When the time comes that we die and some of us will meet our Maker, others may not, who knows, we go to heaven, or even if you go to hell. But if you go to heaven, heaven may be a very empty place because every religion, and now we're talking about religions and not beliefs like Buddhism, because Buddhism is just a way of life. But, the Jews call themselves the chosen people. Jesus said that no one gets to the Father but through me, meaning himself. So you have to believe in the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, the Holy Trinity. We may get up there and find out there aren't too many people there, I mean, all the rest of them are all in purgatory, which takes us back to ancient Greece and Rome, which is neither heaven nor hell, but that in-between stage, and that's where you wind up.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, we have to make, we can't worry about what's going to happen when we go to our next phase of our adventure. Right now, we have to worry about this phase of our adventure. And we got to make sure that we do the right thing, that we take care of people, that we lead a good life.
Oh, you mean we don't build pyramids like the Egyptians and load it down with all our earthly possessions that we might need in the next world?
That's a thought. Except I don't have any possessions, so I don't have to worry about things like that.
You're low maintenance, Felix.
I am. I'm very low.
You're very low maintenance, yes.
I'm low everything. Low maintenance. You're right. I am low maintenance. That's well put. That's what my wife says. I mean, if she doesn't make dinner, I eat cereal.
That's only because you're too lazy to go out and bring something in, okay, or you didn't bother to stop on your way home from work. So you get angry at your wife because she didn't tell you she wasn't cooking, and instead of being nice and calling something in where you could ask her what she wants, you say, okay, I'm going to make cereal.
Well, the problem is she never wants anything.
Well, she's like my wife. She's never hungry. They can eat practically nothing and survive from day to day. I know I couldn't live like that.
I think
it took long enough. We should tell them.
Nobody could hear it probably, but we take one of the phones.
No, that's not what we did.
What?
If you called in and got a busy signal, because we were having problems with the phone and people were calling, we're swamped. Our switchboard is swamped with calls, and we were getting a loud noise, but we just disconnected everything.
Hey, as I said, I am the technician. No. I am a technician. I fix things the way I think. Very abruptly and without really thinking of the consequence of what's going to happen. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, our phone number here is 646-595-3275. It's Wednesday evening. We are broadcasting off schedule, so when you hear the show on Friday night, it is going to be then it's going to be already a blog, and even if we're asking you to call, you really won't be able to call in because obviously you're listening to just a tape of us. Dr. Mark is going on a trip down to Ohio to watch his daughter. She entered a half a marathon. I believe it's the first one, so he's going down and cheer her on. And he will not be with us on Friday or Monday. So we're going to have to decide what we're going to do, if we're going to run a show on Monday or not. Friday's show is more or less today's show that we're doing now. And Monday I will try to get a guest speaker or a guest host because if you don't realize it, it's very hard to run a show on your own. Especially when there are no commercials and no music and no way, there's nothing there to keep you going unless you have a live caller or you have a co-host who will throw things off each other. We basically we do not use any kind of pre-print, we do no preparations. Basically, we discuss what we're going to do, but we have nothing in writing, and everything that we do is whatever just comes out. That's what we say, and it normally works pretty well. The interaction between Dr. Mark and myself is pretty good, so I don't really worry about not having kind of a script. What I worry about is if once you're doing more than 35, 40 minutes of a show and we get no callers, then we really can't continue on with the show. we're just going to cut it before we start becoming very antsy and start struggling. And, you don't want to hear us struggling, waiting for a call. Or I would rather, just close down the show a little early than struggle. So if that makes any sense to anybody. And again, the subject tonight, do you believe there is a God? Are you an agnostic? Or are you an atheist? I believe in the Supreme Being. Yeah. But I'm not, I am considered by a reverend, but, I don't believe in a lot of the hierarchy of the church and all the stuff that they go through. They spend a lot of money, the churches. They waste a lot of money. I think that money that they spend on themselves and their beautiful churches and everything else that they do, they can go ahead and really do a good deed and give those funds away. And, they should sacrifice a lot more than they do. Look at the way the Roman Catholic Church, the kind of facilities they live in and have in in Italy. The Vatican. The Vatican is a city in itself, and it costs probably billions of dollars to build and maintain. And to me, that money that they spend in the Vatican to keep it going could go to better causes such as different charities and help the poor. The old days they used to talk about the missionaries who used to go all over the world, live with the poor people, try to help them. Now you look at all these cardinals and whatever else they are, bishops, and they all look like they've had one too many meals, and they haven't really done anything for mankind. We're supposed, as a servant of God, we're supposed to help others.
Felix, Rev, that reminds me. What about all these Sunday morning preachers? That have their TV shows like Joel Osteen and some of the others. I mean, they rake in so much money, and I really don't see any of these religious people living a modest life.
That's my point. I'm just saying, when you look at the Vatican, the church, the money that's spent to maintain that place, it could feed so many people in this world.
Well, if they would just tax religion, period, any religion, the burden that it would take off the ordinary taxpayer would be tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you become tax exempt and great deal, but you're supposed to be a non-profit, and you're supposed to give away your profits, I guess, if you're a non-profit. But who says what a profit is?
Yeah, I'll give you a non-profit. Look at this. Even in your Interfaith Ministry Manual, they have a blessing for money.
Really? Can you read it?
Well, I'll try. This blessing has a special significance and purpose and usefulness owing to the peculiar nature of its object. They don't work for me. Money can be regarded as materialized or condensed divine energy. In its essence, it is therefore something good and pure. But in the course of its use, money becomes polluted by the evil passions, the low desires, the worries and fears, the selfish attachment of all to whom it temporarily belongs. Okay. This is not merely symbolical or psychological connection. Evil forces become attached to the money and their possessions. This is one of the chief causes of trouble, individual and collective strife, and maladjustment and unjust distribution connected with material goods, particularly dealing with money. If this cause has a subjective character, the true solution, the effective remedy, should be of the same kind, primarily subjective, psychological, and spiritual. In fact, the right use of money depends on the right motivation, which is a subjective psychological urge determining the right choices. But there's a more specific way of counteracting what can be considered the cursed attachment to money. This curse forms the central theme and the deep meaning of Wagner's series of musical dramas, The Ring of Nibelung.
Nibelung?
I pronounced it right.
I know, I didn't say it didn't.
The spiritual purification and redemption of money can be achieved by the conscious use of our spiritual and psychological energies. It can be accomplished by the use of concentrated thought animated by right feeling or emotional force and projected by will through the use of affirmation formulated in words. In other words, take the money and put it to good use. Don't spend it on yourself. If we subject all money which passes through our hands to such a treatment, and if an increasing large number of people deliberately do so, many problems which find no external and technical solution would be done away with, obviously, because the money would be used to help others, not necessarily ourselves. This may seem surprising, that so little are we accustomed to this materialistic civilization to give the true practical consideration to the reality and the power of subjective forces. Yet it is so, and if we are consistent in our spiritual convictions, we cannot but admit to this. It is in reality an act of blessing. An apt formulation of it can be effective. The following, which is being used by many groups as well as individuals, is suggested thusly. May this money be blessed. It is a symbol of divine substance and energy. May it be redeemed from every impure influence, from every attachment and craving. I appreciate it and keep it as a divine gift. I will use it only for good and right and appropriate purposes. In using it, again, I bless it and give thanks for it. If you're lucky enough, look at Bill Gates. Look at Warren Buffett. Look at all the billionaires who have pledged half of their wealth to do good for others, to give it away. I mean, no matter, Warren Buffett's children are grown. Bill Gates has children who are in their 20s, I believe. How much money do they really need in their life? Take a family like the Kennedys who worked for $1 because as government employees, they had to be paid something. They certainly didn't need the money. Unfortunately, you have people in Congress now. The richest man in Congress is Darrell Issa from California. Okay? You have doctors who are congressmen and senators who have thriving practices. Rand Paul, they still maintain medical practices. Now, it's my understanding that Rand Paul does give of his time when Congress is not in session, okay, and he does donate time and do operations and does not accept any fee, which I will give him credit for that, But I mean, I remember a question posed to Jesus after his Sermon on the Mount. One of the people listening said to him, my Lord, I am a businessman and I have a lot of wealth. How do I get into heaven? How do I gain eternal life? And he says, by giving everything away. And the man scoffed at him and said, what, are you kidding me? I worked hard for this. And Jesus told him a story of an old lady who gave 2 pennies away. And he laughed and he said, what's 2 pennies? And Jesus said, it was all she had. When you give from the heart like that, it's all that you have. I mean, what about the old saying that God takes care of children and fools, or fools and whatever? Unfortunately, God doesn't always take care of children, as we've seen in the papers almost every day. But, you ask yourself, just the other day I was watching a program, and they said, why is it that so many soldiers who come back from war are so mentally scarred? Why is it that they are homeless? Why is it that they are alcoholics? They suffer from PTSD. They don't allow the government or the VA hospitals to help them because there's such a bureaucracy, such a tie-up. These are people who gave their all for their country, and when they come back, we just forget about them. They're nameless and faceless. All it takes is to do one good deed. Do one act of kindness a day and ask nothing for it. Do it anonymously. You're not doing it for the accolade or the praise or the joy. You're doing it because deep in your heart you know it's the right thing to do. That should be enough of a reward.
That's where I all started talking while you went for your quick break. The Vatican spent so much money keeping the Vatican going, and it's such a luxurious and beautiful place, and they should really get rid of some of it and use that money to help people. Just billions of dollars goes to the Vatican to keep it going, and there's no reason for it. I mean, the Pope that we have now was a very modest Pope. He used to be a people's.
Well, he's still a people's Pope. He truly is. Yeah.
Get rid of some of it. Show what the true Catholic is. Give away some of what you have in the church. Don't go collecting from your people, from your constituents. Give to your constituents. The church has enough money to survive for
many years.
And I think it's time to start giving back all the years that people are giving to the church. Close down some of those fancy buildings. Turn them into projects for people. I don't know. Make them into some kind of good use. I mean,
for a long time, the Catholic Church owned the controlling rights to Standard Oil. I don't know if they still do, but they did at one time.
I mean, the way the Pope and everybody, the cardinals and everybody acts, they're treated like kings and queens and everything else. And that's not what a religion's supposed to be. I don't understand it. That's why.
Speaking of kings and queens, I mean, just take the monarchy in England. Now, I know it's going to survive. We all know that. But, as much as they complain about the cost of living, the Queen commands a certain salary. What does she do? She's a figurehead. There's the same thing with her husband, who's a prince, and her son, Charles. Now, William is going to be king, and his son will eventually be king, but they're figureheads. How much money do they really need to live? But they get paid a tidy sum just for the fact that they're royalty. Plus that they get all these beautiful castles to live in.
Yeah. The English people don't mind it. They're not objecting to it. And a lot of they're just figureheads. I don't know why they're still there, but they're not going anywhere.
Oh no.
The English are proud of them. The English are proud of them.
Oh, they're very proud.
So that's, but they should they could tone down a little bit also and give some of their money away. Don't praise, that you're rich. Praise that you're able to give.
Actually, the point is when you pray, you should give thanks for what you have, because what you have should make you happy. Not that you want or need more, but that you're happy for what you have, because there's always someone who has less than you.
And there's always someone who has more than you. But just because somebody has more than you, it doesn't mean you shouldn't give anyway. And if the person that has less than you could probably give some too, because there's always somebody that's worse off. There are kids dying every day in the world from starvation. There are people starving in the United States.
There are children who come to school in the morning who don't know where their next meal is coming from.
This is living here in America. People are malnutrition. How could we allow that? Republicans, Democrats, whatever you are, how can you allow that to happen?
And call yourself Christian people.
Call yourself a human being.
They talk about Judeo-Christian beliefs, but it's certainly not. They're not practicing Judeo-Christian ethics when they can allow a child to go hungry in this country in this day and age. And how can a child do well in school when he doesn't know where his next meal is going to come from when he goes home?
We're all human beings. We're all created equally.
They could eat Fruit Loops like you.
Absolutely, but I eat them with sugar-free. But it's, yes, cereal is a healthy meal. Most of them can't afford cereal. The ones that are really poor. They can't even afford the cereal. They don't have the milk to go with the cereal. And then we see...
Milk. They don't even have clean water, some people. When you talk about other countries.
Here in the United States, you have these problems. And then you have... I'm sorry to say this, but some of our hypocritical actors and actresses who go help people in different parts of the world, when they should be helping the people in this part of the world first.
No, I wouldn't call them hypocrites. Okay, there's a difference. They're doing something to help underprivileged people in another country. Okay, and if you were to ask them why, they would tell you that it's because in that country they are so happy for whatever they have, whatever you do for them. Yet if you do something here for people, some people always look at you and say, well, that's not enough.
Yeah, why
you
so
have so much.
Yeah, why so little?
So, many Americans in need, constantly demand more and more. But in other countries, third world countries, they're so happy for the little bit that somebody gives them.
No, you're right. You're right. When you're right, I take back what I said. I apologize. I still think you're hypocrites, but you're doing the right thing.
Well, the hypocrites are the ones who are doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why you see more and more famous people, sports figures and actors and actresses that have foundations, and they give to their foundation and they support their foundation, and they advertise for their foundation. And the bulk of the money comes from them, let's face it.
And listen, the Koch brothers, give away some Coke to people.
Coke? Cocaine?
Whatever, Just
no, they want to give away to their own kind of people. They want to give away to the job creators. I'd like to see some of the jobs they create. But that's politics, and we're not here to discuss politics. This is a religious show.
Yeah, today's not politics. But there's too much religion in politics, and too much politics in religion.
That's very true. But again, that would be for another show.
Yeah. And this is the Rebellious Rev here. And we are just rebelling today.
And the number in New York is?
646-595-3275.
Come on, let's get those phones ringing, folks. It's like a telethon here. We don't want your money, we want your support.
Okay, and we're going to give you, we're going to stay on the air for 5 minutes more or so. And if we don't get a phone call...
What are we looking at? Like almost an hour or so?
We're almost at an hour now.
All right. We have about another 5 to 10 minutes more, and that's about it because, like I said, the Rebellious Rev, believe it or not, is all talked out. Knowing that it was religion, I gave him the microphone, and he ran with it.
It's not so much that I'm talked out. What I want to talk about, I am sort of... how should I put it? I'm scolded if I go into the topic that I enjoy talking about. The internet and the churches.
Well, I think they've heard all that before. We're actually asking, truthfully, do you consider yourself a believer in a supreme being in God? Okay, if you do, that's fine. The majority of the people actually are with you on that. Are you an agnostic? Do you doubt the existence of it? There might be a supreme being, okay? And then you have the atheist who says, I don't understand how, and this is where Felix's parents would probably fall in, especially after what they witnessed. Don't understand how a God in all good conscience could put people through what he put people through during World War II, okay? And, not come out of it unscathed. It seems to me, now I'm Jewish, but it seems to me that in the Old Testament, there's an awful lot of God doing away with people and punishing people, and a lot of killing, okay, as opposed to, of course, if you were Jewish, you wouldn't believe in the New Testament, but in the New Testament, okay, Jesus is only talking about love and peace and what can we do for each other, okay, to make the world a better place to live. Leaves one to wonder. Now, I'm not espousing conversion on anybody or Jews for Jesus or anything like that, but you could certainly make your own comparison. You go to Shabbos services on Saturday, and the rabbi talks about an all-caring God, and then you think about the Holocaust, or you think about Noah and the flood, okay? Or you think about God testing Abraham by taking his only son, who he waited a lifetime for, to be sacrificed to God just because God said so, and unwaveringly, Abraham was going to do it until God said, no, you passed the test. Okay, I provided you with a lamb to sacrifice, and you shall not sacrifice your son Isaac. Okay, I won't even mention Sodom and Gomorrah because supposedly that was a town rife with evil. Okay, and the only good people were Lot and his wife and his children. But then on the other hand, after Lot hides out with his daughters, they felt that, God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah where we lived. The world is coming to an end. So what do the daughters do? They get their father drunk and they become impregnated by their father because they want to continue the line. But that's incest. Okay? Does God condone incest in the Bible? I don't know. You draw your own conclusions.
Listen, I think we put too much into the Bible. We should just worry about life, worry about us being good person, you and I being a good person. And
just listen to this advice, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, very important.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
Again, we are all here. We're living our life. If there is an afterlife, that's great.
If there is a God,
that's great. If there isn't a God,
then live your life as though you believed in something and your life had some meaning.
We need a purpose to live. We're not, to me, if there is a God, there's no God. I'm still not going to do anything much different. And be good to your fellow man. That's all that really counts. And with that,
we're going to draw to a conclusion our special Wednesday night show.
Hope you enjoyed it, ladies and gentlemen. And you will be hearing us live again probably next Wednesday, I'm thinking, or Friday. Unless I put on a special show with one of our guest hosts like Dr. Don or something, but on next Monday. But that we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening. You all have a good night. Dr. Mark?
Drive Don is calling.
Oh, we have Dr. Don on. Dr. Don, good evening. Hello.
Don or Dan?
Don. Can you hear me? Don?
You may have it on mute. I don't know.
No, I don't know. That was Dr. Don calling in, but the call is not coming through, so we're going to ahead and end the show, and we'll be talking to you again. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.